Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Pro Athlete Advantage. Today's guest is Matt Phillips. Matt, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thanks for having me. We're in an absolutely awesome venue right now at the University of Denver here in downtown, or near downtown Denver, and we're overlooking some sporting fields and some athletes running around, and sunny, beautiful day. I couldn't be in a better place, man.
Perfect, man. So we are getting our vitamin D. We're outside.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's calm. And we're just going to dive right into our conversation today. I've got 4 questions as kind of a part of the conversational warm-up, Matt. And the first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific morning routine or ritual that you like to stick to on most mornings?
Yeah, it's interesting. It has just shifted as of about 2 months ago. And one thing I'm aware of is, routines are huge, right, in all of sports, and they should be part of, our morning routine, evening routine, lunch routine, all that. They're all around us. But mine took a pretty significant shift. We got a new puppy about 2 months ago, and where in the past I used to get up and it was, work out, do some meditation, bust through some work. I was very, the night before I'd figure out, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing the next morning, and wake up. With the dog, it's shifted into, hey, wake up at around 6 o'clock. We hear a little bark from the little one, and we take him out for a walk, come home, kids get up, they feed him, I go shower and get off to work. And I've actually had to shift my workouts to the afternoon just with this little new addition to our family. But I'm a big believer in, movement in the morning. That walk for me is, even though it's a walk, right? People are like, well, that's not a tough workout. And I'm like, well, but it's movement, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the key piece. If you can move for 5 minutes, 30 minutes, it doesn't really matter. But getting the body kind of primed for the day and getting going and stuff like that, that movement is huge. And then for me, it's just reviewing what I have coming up in the day and getting my mindset right in, asking myself that question of what do I need to accomplish today, right? So what do I need to have happen? So when I look back at the end of the day, it was a successful day.
Awesome.
And priming myself that way, because then I get out of the gate with just a tremendous amount of energy.
Right. Now, I want to, because you work with professional athletes, you work with high-level business people and things like that, have you found that the majority of these type of individuals, these type of people, Matt, do have some sort of structure in their morning that helps create a productive day for them?
It's hit or miss, to be completely honest.
Okay.
So let's talk pro athletes for a minute, right? So they're used to having routines, before they're at bats in baseball, before they, shoot free throws, before they, have that free kick in soccer, whatever. They're used to applying routines to that. It doesn't necessarily apply to every area outside of their sport.
Interesting.
So I talk a lot about, what are your morning routines, right? Your game's not till 7 tonight, or maybe 1 in the afternoon. What are you doing to start your day, right? When you go to bed after the game is done, that evening routine, what are you doing to prepare yourself to go to sleep so you get the most rest possible? So from athletes, it's more of we optimize the routines that deal with our sports, but it's also, let's think bigger with this.
Interesting.
Because they can apply to every minute or second that we have during the day.
Right.
Business people, it's more of, if they happen to have had an athletic background, it's almost like we forget how to apply the things that made us successful in the past to the current. So a lot of it's the same thing of what are we doing in the morning? And with business people, business owners, it's especially important to start your day off differently, right? We just had one of my mastermind groups last week, and we were talking about how, some of the guys were talking that they wake up and their energy is just low, and it takes until about noon just to get in this mental state of okay, I'm going to go crush the day. So part of, I think everyone, if I remember right from that, is switching up their morning routine where what they're going to do is change their state when they wake up in the morning. They're going to get up and put their shoulders back, chest out, get in this kind of power position, and then say this one I am statement that they have of getting their body and mind primed for I'm here to make a difference in the world. I'm here to start this day off amazingly. I'm going to go crush it today. And that's what they're going to do immediately upon waking up. Change that state, get themselves pumped up, and go absolutely crush the day and make it happen. And in business too, one of the big differences is I'm a big believer in what's your meetings, right? We waste so much time in meetings. Why are we, wrong people in the room? We have a meeting and nobody's prepared. all these sorts of things, right? And there's all sorts of studies about the billions of dollars, billions with a B, that are left on the table because of inefficiencies there. So it's like, what's your pre-meeting routine, right? What's your post-meeting routine? Like, did you get the value out of that meeting that you should have? But really looking at their business day and being like, and kind of calling it a question, like, how are you doing things? And let's approach things differently than everybody else to get a different result.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that insight, Matt. So the second question here is kind of part of the warm-up. And if there's more than one, please feel free to share. But do you have a favorite book or a book that you like to gift often?
So lately, I'll tell you the book I've been just into and reading. I've read twice now. But it's, I think a lot of people have heard of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Yep.
I read his Cash Flow Quadrant book. And again, this is a very, like, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, you was in the corporate world for 15 plus years. So this book for me, as I continue to expand and grow my business, very, very interesting, very helpful. And the whole premise is, how do you shift from like being an employee to a small business owner to a true business owner, and then kind of getting these investments where it's that recurring income, right? And so for me, it was just this great perspective and great way to kind of take that step back and be like, listen, am I moving my business in the direction that I want to, where I'm at true business owner, which ultimately is like I can walk away for an extended period of time, and it's better off than when I actually was there, right?
Right.
So for me, that was a big one, and it applies to athletes. It applies to business owners. It applies to people in the corporate world as well. It's ultimately like, are you taking true ownership of your whatever that is for you, right? Of your team, of your business, of your function in a company, of your family. Right? Are you taking true ownership? Are you setting it up for success? Are you doing it in a way that's sustainable? And that's what I liked about it, because I found, obviously, for my business, it's like, I know where I'm going.
Yes.
And so I'm taking the steps to get there. But it was also very applicable to, like, okay, my family and kids, am I really setting it up sustainably, or
right,
or is this kind of if I walked away, like they're going to be in a tough place type thing. So that book in particular, Cash Flow Quadrant, has been lately one I've just been reading over and over again.
Cool. Yeah. Now in regards to the cash flow quadrant, was because this is something that I've kind of been looking into a little bit more myself, is real estate. So was real estate something that was some sort of focus within that book, or not per se?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the areas that, there's all sorts of different investments you can get.
Yeah, for sure.
But he talked about real estate, the stock market. He talked about all these different areas, but ultimately, the other cool thing was, it's one of the things you brought up is like, okay, so how do you, if you buy something, right, then sometimes you have to go get money for it, right?
Absolutely.
You have to borrow money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Typical thing, buy a house, some bank comes in the back door, right? But almost thinking differently of like, okay, so how do I become the bank? Right? So it's like, I want to go buy a house. How do I fund that, or fund it differently, where now I'm earning the interest payments, right? Or I get rental properties, and it's like, well, great, now I'm going to be the bank, and you're going to come get a loan from me, because now I get the interest on it, right? So it's thinking differently investment wise. Even if you own a building or something like that, or for your own offices, it's like, okay, could you do something unique to rent out a portion of it where they're paying the rent for you? So that was like that investment, like, just think differently, think outside the box, instead of waiting for somebody else to or do the traditional methods.
Love it. All right, cool. So do you have, Matt, a favorite quote or mantra, maybe something, and it could be maybe a quote or mantra that helped you out maybe in a specific season of your life? Maybe it's something that impacted you when you were younger, maybe a coach said something, or maybe it's just been a lifelong quote or mantra. And again, if there's more than one, feel free to share. But if there's maybe just one that's been very impactful in your life, what would that be?
Yeah, so a couple come to mind. One is, I'm a Christian guy. I've got a pretty big faith. So there's lots of parts of the Bible that that I've leveraged and I've leaned upon and continue to lean upon every day. It's a big part. And there's so many I won't share them with you. But just that belief in something bigger than myself has been something where when I've been in funks, a lot of it turns to this selfishness, right?
Yep.
It's about me, and it's about my business, and it's about, I've got to have time for this and all that sort of stuff. But it's from a a biblical perspective, it's like, oh no, I'm here to serve others. I'm here to like
Absolutely.
impact people's lives. Right?
Yes.
That's why I believe I was put on this earth. So there's so many parts of the Bible that I honestly go back to. Aside from that, I don't know the quote exactly, but it's a Thomas Jefferson quote that kind of like going into battle, right? So the kind of trophies are saved for the ones, stepping into the battle. And it's taking, that's one, and I can pull up the quote, maybe we can put it in the show notes or something like that.
For sure.
But it's take the risk. It's put yourself out there. Because what I found is the greatest stories come from those times that were the hardest.
Absolutely.
And you think when you're going through it, like, this is awful, but those are the ones you talk about later.
For sure.
Me, I'm in a business where I take risk a lot,
Yes.
right? And I'm asking people to take risks, right? To shift your mindset on something. I'm asking you to step out of your comfort zone. So I have to walk in this with this mentality of like, I have to be willing to take the risk as well.
Absolutely.
In order to impact the people that I work with. And then, you met my son right before we started this, and he's preparing for his hockey game right now, 11-year-old. And the thing I preach to all our kids, and my wife does as well, is that success in life comes down to two things. It's effort and attitude. And it's simple, right? I'm a simple guy, and if I give a great effort, right, which is truly like, if I look in the mirror at the end of the day and it's like, okay, I gave 100% of my effort, because we say all the time, I was talking to one guy about this, that I gave my best, right? We say that all the time. Everybody says that. I say that. I gave my best. But it's ultimately looking in the mirror and being like, okay, was that really your best? Right? Because that's cliche to say I gave my
Absolutely.
best. Was
Absolutely.
it or was it not? And it comes down to did I give my best effort? And did I have a positive attitude along the way? And an attitude different than others, that I'm going to look at adversity as something good. I'm going to look at the positive as something I can leverage and be momentum.
Right.
That effort and attitude. So I just hope my, kids, every time they play hockey or in school or as they, build relationships with kids, I've got 2 girls and a boy, and I just hope they approach life with just great effort and great attitude, and,
Absolutely.
and good things will happen.
Beautiful. Yeah. Cool. All right. So the last question here, in regards to our warm up, Matt, do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
So lately, I love what we're here to do, right? It's to listen to people's stories and stuff. So lately for me, it's been, I'll pick up the Tony Robbins podcast every once in a while.
Yep.
And it's just because he's talking to people who've done it before. One of my mentors says, and success leaves clues.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm hopeful somebody will take something from this podcast, right? That's why I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to do this. But that Tony Robbins podcast has been really beneficial for me. And that one, to be honest, I've really been limiting my podcast lately. And I know that may sound odd, but I've been focusing myself and people I work with on this whole thing of if you find a podcast, that's awesome, right? Listen to it, have that consistency with it.
Yeah.
But I more want people to say, okay, now take what you learn from that podcast and implement.
Yes.
Right? And instead of picking up and listen to I'm going to listen to 4 more podcasts today, it's no. Use that time to take what you learned from Quentin, right? And go implement.
Yes.
Use that time to implement. And
Absolutely.
then maybe a couple days later, then listen to another podcast. But just shift, because podcasts and books and all sorts of stuff, they can be such great distractions.
Right, for
if
sure.
we're not careful.
For sure.
So I've been telling, for myself, I've been really limiting myself on as the bell tolls.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Hey, we're outside, man. It's all good. It's real life. That's my podcast, real life.
But yeah, so I've been, I just think it's an important thing to focus on. How do you implement what you're learning?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's such a huge thing. But.
Yeah, and speaking of Tony Robbins, Matt, I actually Mike Tyson has a podcast now, which I've listened to a few episodes, and they get off topic a lot, but he did have back in, I believe it was July, he had Tony Robbins on, because Tony Robbins has played a big role in Mike Tyson's life, specifically after he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear. I think that was back in the late 90s, 97, 98.
I was watching that.
Tony, I remember. I was a young kid, but I remember seeing it on ESPN, whoa, that's crazy. But so anyways, the story goes is that, Mike Tyson's his crew said, hey, Mike's in a bad place right now after this fight, a lot of stuff going on. And they asked Tony to come and speak with Mike, and so they through that have gained a great relationship. So Mike had Tony on his podcast back in July, and I just listened to the other day, and Tony Robbins, whatever you think about him, he's a pioneer, so to speak, in kind of that mental game and stuff. And I don't listen to him a lot, but I do like to listen to him as like a guest on other people's podcasts or interviews, because again, whatever you think about him, he has great insights, and he's been connected with millions and millions and millions of human beings and positively impacted their life. So with all of that being said, Matt, as you've maybe dug in a little bit, what is one thing that you've kind of taken away from listening to Tony Robbins that you've been able to apply to your life that's helped you to become a better individual?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes back to like the stories we tell ourselves. It's literally that simple, and we get stuck, and all of us do. We get stuck in different areas of our life, and it's because of the story that we're telling.
Absolutely.
Right, and it could be legitimate, right? Like I had a tough upbringing. Like it's legitimate stuff. I'm not discounting what people have been through, right? But ultimately, it comes down to like, okay, that's great, that's your story, but you're stuck in it. And more importantly, like, what story do you want to tell yourself? Like, what story do you want to create from this moment forward? And that's where, like, I appreciate the Tony Robbins of the world, and like all these. There's other great, fabulous speakers and thought leaders out there. But it's like, what you've been dealt a hand. You've gone through different things in your life. Okay, great. Now, how do you want to use those? And you can use them as fuel. You can use them as something that's going to, build you up, tear you down. There's different ways to go about it, and that's what I love. Is like when we challenge the status quo, we're challenging the story we're telling ourselves. So when I decide to do something different, I'm going against what I've been probably brought up to believe or to believe in, and that's where like breakthrough happens. That's where the fun part is, because when you start with something small and change it and say, well, I'm gonna choose to have a different story here.
Right.
It's amazing like what starts to happen. I mean, it's repetition. This is where like this mental toughness, kind of that strong mindset comes in, and you have to stick with it, because it's easy to say something, oh no, I'm going to make this difference at one time,
right,
and then to get in it and stay in it and really make it happen. That's where the kind of toughness comes in,
for sure.
But that story side of things I always appreciate with Tony. I was watching his what's it called, I Am Not Your Guru, Netflix special. And you just see it every time. Like he snaps people out of their stories and back into reality, back into the moment. And now we can talk and do something about it, right? And that's where a lot of us, me included, right? I think people think like Tony's got it all figured out, that all these thought leaders have it all figured out, and their life is perfect, all that stuff. It's like no, like they're dealing with the same things we are, right? Absolutely. Pro athletes, we put them on this pedestal of like they have nothing to worry about, right? And I was reading the story yesterday about this Kansas City Royals pitcher, who was basically hazed unbelievably his rookie year. Suffered from depression. He was anxious all the time. But yet we put him on a pedestal like, oh, he is making millions of dollars, or she is making millions of dollars, right? Or all this money. Things must be great. It's like they're going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
So it's we all have that choice of like what story we want to tell, and like what do we want to do about it. Yeah.
For sure. Beautiful insight. Okay, so just quickly here, because I really want to get in detail, in depth on kind of like who you are today, Matt, and you just working kind of in the sector that you work in, and your passion, your fire that's in your soul. But just quickly, give us a quick snapshot, myself, my listeners, kind of like where did you grow up? What were just those younger years like? I'm assuming you're probably involved in sports and things like that. Just kind of share with us a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of move on from there.
And so I grew up here in Littleton, Colorado.
Okay.
So it's a suburb of Denver.
Yep.
Was born here. We lived a couple other places when I was growing up. We lived in Salt Lake City for about 9 years, Spokane, Washington for a few short years, and then moved back to Denver when I was in 7th grade. And my parents are native Coloradans, and so it was getting home for us. So I grew up here. Went to kind of Catholic grade school growing up. Went to a Catholic high school for a year, and then I switched to a public high school, Arapahoe High School here in Colorado, and graduated from there. Played a variety of different sports growing up. Baseball was my main one. I played football, played tennis for a year, wrestled for a year. but played a bunch of different sports, soccer, all that stuff. But baseball was kind of my, I don't know, just go to the one I always went back to.
Right,
I would kind
right.
of almost dabble in other sports and then go back to the one that I love the most. So yeah, I played baseball through high school. Worked my way up, freshman, sophomore, JV, varsity team to my senior year, and then went off to college to play baseball as well. But
Cool,
yeah, that was
cool.
yeah. And I grew up with an older sister. She was cross country runner.
Okay.
I played other sports as well, but and my mom and dad were always at my sporting events and
Absolutely,
all that stuff. So honestly, great childhood.
Yep.
In the grand scheme of things, compared to a lot of other people's, pretty easy
Yeah,
childhood.
for sure.
But I was just focused on sports and getting good grades in school and doing that whole thing.
Do you? And I have a very similar upbringing and story in regards to the younger years. But do you feel like sports really shaped your younger years and really gave you great tools for you becoming the man that you are today and helping other people reach their goals?
Oh yeah. It's one of those things, like any way, it's like sports or not, any way you can challenge yourself to get out of
Okay.
your comfort zone and in a
Yes,
competitive
yes.
arena, I believe it grows you.
Absolutely.
Right? So you could be in a band or in the band at school, you could be in like the chess club, you could be all this stuff. But it's those competitive moments I think grow you significantly, right? For me, looking back, sports revealed a lot of good things. It built me in good ways. It also revealed some bad things that I had to work on, continue to work on. I think you learn work ethic. You learn to deal with teammates and deal with coaches. I think you start learning that, as athletes, we're the ultimate owners of our performance.
Yes. Yep.
Which is something that, I won't call it bad, but something I didn't really learn or know growing up. My parents taught me that great coaches, great parents, right? But I didn't learn until really I started this business, to be honest, it was like this epiphany of wait a minute, why am I reliant on a coach to tell me to do something?
Right.
Or some other person to instruct me to do something. It's no, I own it. I'm going to go make it happen. I'm going to work on this because I know it's important. It's going to improve me in this way, right?
Yes.
And through college, through high school, it's I would wait for other people to tell me to do something instead of saying no. That owner is the guy staring back at you in the mirror.
Yep.
Come on, Matt. Let's go. But sports, I think, are even testing your mindset, right? You find out quickly where your limit is, and that's the beauty of sports is you find ways to work through that and work past it, whether it's with other people or yourself. There's so many benefits
for sure
for sports. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Now, again, just quickly here, went off to college. Did you play any sports in college? And then what did you end up studying in college?
Yeah, so I was real fortunate. So I went to Creighton University in Omaha.
Cool.
For undergrad, my sister was there. My mom went there. My two uncles went there. We're both undergrad and professional schools. So we had kind of a little bit of a family history at Creighton.
For sure. Great school.
Yeah, and I was at a high school. I wasn't really recruited by anybody.
Okay.
I was looking to go to the Air Force Academy and play baseball there. And then a few junior colleges, but I just had decided I'm not going junior college route. I'm going to get my education first.
For sure.
So I was actually a walk-on at Creighton. And I'll give you the short story. So there were 2 days of tryouts my freshman year. I was cut after 2 days.
Okay.
And there's a lot underneath that. I went through a pretty bad spell those first couple months after getting cut because, we all wrap our identity in something.
Absolutely.
And for me, it was if you asked in high school, tell me about yourself, Matt. First words out of my mouth is I play baseball.
Yep.
Right? First words, right?
Absolutely.
And that freshman year, having my identity stripped from me in the matter of 20 seconds after those 2 days of trial sitting with the coach, I was like a lost soul wandering the halls of Creighton University, right? And I was thinking to myself, wow, I got to go, now I get to focus on my education. I'm like, that's so lame. I'm like, from where I was at, I'm like, that just sucks.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
And, I'm real blessed. That's where my faith really kind of took off.
Awesome.
But I was fortunate. I sat I remember sitting in the administration building at Creighton in a political science class. Professor hands me back a paper that I had written with a big red C on it. And for some reason, Quentin, it's so funny, that was my trigger. That made me so angry at that moment that I stopped drinking alcohol from that moment on. I started I remember sitting there like, what are you doing? I'm having this conversation in
Yeah,
the middle of class.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this isn't you, Matt. This
Right,
isn't you.
right.
Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want this next thing to be? And so I completely redefined who I was. Started joining clubs, lifting weights 5 days a week. Started doing intramural sports. Like, I'm so fortunate I went through that. Again, short. I don't think I can tell a short story.
Yo, it's fine. No, it's
I'm
fine.
kidding, but
this is
like,
part of your
Matt,
story,
quickly,
though.
Matt.
No, it's good. It's good.
But
I love it.
Fast forward to my sophomore year, a friend of mine named Eric Groen, he leans over to me in class, like one of the first days of school, and he's like, "You need to try out again." And I'm like, "Eric, I haven't touched a ball in a year, man. Like, no, like I'm not doing that." Every single day, Eric would lean over to me in class and be like, "Matt, you need to try out again. You need to try out again." And finally, I thought about it, I prayed about it, I talked to my parents about it, I talked to some others, and I came to this conclusion that what is the worst thing they're going to do to me? Cut me again?
Right.
Okay, well, Matt Phillips is somebody a bit different now, so I'll go on with my life, right? So I decided to go back out. I hit 2 times, hit baseballs twice before I went and tried out. Again, I hadn't touched the ball in a year. I wish I was that story of like, no, I dedicated myself.
Right.
I sacrificed everything to make that team. Nope, I went on with my life. Hit twice, went out, and lo and behold, ended up making the team. Playing for the next 3 years, that opened up a professional opportunity for me over in Europe. And it was absolutely incredible opportunity. But played third base for 3 years. And played shortstop when I was over living in Europe, professionally over there. And while I was at Creighton, to answer that story, studied finance and international business. I had a double major.
Cool.
And then later on, I ended up going to University of Virginia to get my master's of accountancy, of all things.
Love it, man. A numbers guy, huh?
I guess so. I got out of it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, great. It was fabulous.
Cool. Now, I want to touch on this whole identity thing, because I was actually at Red Rocks Church last night, and the whole message was on identity. And because I too, grew up playing sports, played a year of college football, and after that year of college football, because literally everything in my life from as far back as I can remember, Matt, it was focused on sports. I went to school so I could play sports. I was, I had an identity at school because of sports. I had all of this recognition and, picture in the paper and this and that, pats on the back. Everything was because of sports.
Yes.
And my darkest year, similar to what you said, my darkest years came after I quit football my freshman year of college. And I mean, you want to talk about, there were suicidal thoughts, there was, some sort of depression, even though I didn't even know what depression was, but just hindsight's always, 2020, and looking back and examining those years, man, it was so dark. And I didn't know it because I was in it at the time, but now again, looking back, it's like, my identity was sports. Everything that Quentin Vars was sports. And when that was gone, I was like, who am I? I didn't have the camaraderie with the guys in the locker room. I didn't have goals to, work towards. There was, I was still lifting weights, but there wasn't like anything really to work towards or for. Yes. So just the importance. What was the importance for you? Because that really seems like it was a transitional milestone moment in your life. And you talked about it was, uncomfortable at the time. It was hard at the time. But how valuable and important and thankful are you for that moment when you got cut and some of those darker days that you went through? How did that shape you to be the man that you are in this moment, Matt?
That moment was the whole reason I started Pro Athlete Advantage.
Perfect. Okay.
That was the entire reason. And looking back, it's amazing. This is like, hindsight's always 20/20. Like when you're going through something and it's awful and you're like, no good's going to come from this, and then something amazing comes from this. And I get to wake up every day doing what I love to do.
Right.
Like getting up and knowing that, I got to drop my son off at hockey. He's got his hour prep that you and I were going to meet and do this.
Right.
I was fired up, excited to wake up and start the day.
Absolutely,
right?
Yes.
But it started from something extremely difficult. I think we all have this thing where, and we have to be careful of it in business as well, right? You get a job and you wrap your identity into, I'm a VP of blah, blah, blah. I'm a CEO of blah, whatever. Stay-at-home moms, like I'm a stay-at-home mom. You wrap your identity in that.
Yep.
And that can be a very good thing, but it can also be very, very detrimental if you're not careful with it, because at the end of the day, everybody puts stigmas on people, right? You stay-at-home mom. It's like, well, you're not adding to the cash flow of the family, right? Now, I'm married with a wife who stays at home with our kids, but also runs her nutrition coaching business, right? And the value she adds is, I can't even put a dollar value on it because it's so enormous, right? The value that is added from that. But yeah, sometimes she'll discount herself of like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, let me tell you about the wife, the mother that you are, the friend that you are to me. Let me tell you about like everything about your life that is more important, the activity that you do, the lives that you impact, starting with our children, for goodness sake. Like, let me tell you about the impact you're having in this world. You happen to stay at home. You happen to have a nutrition coaching business. You happen to be CEO of a company. I happen to own a business. You happen to have a podcast, Quentin. Great. That's just stuff that you do, though.
Right.
And what I found during that time, and one of the concepts I start with every athlete, every business person is called like building your stand. And it's identifying like what are the principles and values, what are the actions, behaviors, and reactions that are defining your daily decisions, right? It's putting out there who you want to be, and you talk about it like you're already there, right? And it's this North Star to you, but it's based on actions and values and impact that you're trying to make in this world. And you fill in the blank of like I look at that statement for myself, and I talk about how I've got this never quit attitude, that I put family before everything else, that I will put myself in uncomfortable situations, that I will take risks, I will find out the man I'm destined to be in my life. And this is, again, for me, right? This is a statement that gets me fired up. I take those same things, and I can apply it to my business. I can apply it to my relationship with my wife, with my kids, with the way I attack this podcast, the way I work out. Like, it's all based on this. So when people ask, well, tell me about yourself, I'm like, now I answer like, well, how much time do you have? How much time do you have? 'Cause I've
got a couple hours now.
Right? I do a lot of things, but like, listen, like, I'm here to impact people's lives.
Yes.
I happen to have this business. That's just one of the things I do. I can impact people's lives in corporate world. I can impact people's lives like everywhere.
Yep.
Right? And so it's redefining like identity is not something that you do. It's something that you are. It's who you choose to show up as on a daily basis. That's your identity.
Right. Okay, so I mentioned it in the intro, and you just kind of brought it up. You know, this getting cut from the baseball team the first time has been the impetus behind you founding and starting up Pro Athlete Advantage. So, just kind of in an umbrella statement, or just in a short little statement, what is Pro Athlete Advantage, and what is your goal, or what is your focus with this business?
Yeah, so basically, we build high-performance individuals and teams. They're going to crush whatever goals they set in front of themselves. And we focus on the one true differentiator in every area of life, and it's mindset. It's what I call mental toughness, right? It's having that strong mindset, mental and emotional resiliency, however you want to describe it. It's everything in between the ears is what is holding people back.
Absolutely.
So that freshman year of college, it was everything in my head holding me back from moving on from that identity, right? And I had to work through that. I had to work through that and go through that,
right.
Which has made me better and be able to teach people today, right? But we all have fears that we're dealing with, limiting beliefs. We all have, those limitations we put on ourselves. And so, based out of that freshman year, it's like it's my goal every day to wake up and give people the tools to actually work through or past those, and to open up what's possible in this world. I mean, I've got, two driving forces in my life, kind of my whys, if you will. The first is that I want to wake up every day and utilize my God-given gifts and talents that are fullest, right? And that was a gift that my dad left me. He passed away from cancer almost 5 years ago now, which is crazy, after a 2-year battle with cancer. And, it's cliche to be like, yeah, life is short, but it is, right?
It is.
And we get one go-around, and I screw things up and I do good in other areas, right? But it's like... I ultimately want to look back with this kind of no regret attitude and be like, listen, I utilize the gifts and talents, right? I woke up every day and I did that, right?
Yeah.
And some things, sometimes they were in my favor, sometimes not. My other driver is I want to show my kids what's possible in this world. And I want to be an example of, like, if you want to grow a business, grow a business. If my daughters want to go play for USA Volleyball in the Olympics, go play for USA Volleyball in the Olympics, right?
Yes.
But it takes physical preparation, technical preparation, mental preparation. And that's what unlocks kind of everything along the way. So that's really what I do, is like getting in people's heads and helping them unlock like what's holding you back, and let's move forward, and let's take that from a like corporate business perspective. Like, let's help take your team to that next level as well as a pro athlete. Like, we're gonna get in your head. I want your performance to be
right.
where it should be and where it's possible of being, and kind of bust through those different limitations.
Perfect.
So that's kind of what we do.
Now, when I was doing a little bit of research and just kind of digging in a little bit on your website, I came across this ignite your mindset, and there was 5 steps to igniting your mindset. If you don't mind just sharing a little bit kind of what those 5 steps are and how you use this ignite your mindset to have that impact with the business people and the athletes you work with.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the reasons I came up with this kind of ignite your mindset 5-step process is everyone in athletics says that the mental side is the most important, and that's something I grew up with, right?
Right, yeah.
And even in business, like, starting out on a business, it's like, now you got to have a strong mindset, right? You got to be tough and all this stuff. And truth be told, I didn't know what that meant.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? I knew it was like persist, persevere, get back up after you've been knocked down, like all those things, right?
Yep.
Which I agree with. Right? But I didn't really know what it meant. Like, and if I was having a tough time in sports, especially, and I'll like it at the business in a minute, but in sports, I would go, if I was having a tough time, I would go physically train more, or I would technically work on my sport. Right. Meaning I'd go hit more baseballs, right?
Yep.
The mental side, I'm like, no idea, right? Now, mental growth comes from some of those things, right? The physical and technical side. But the true mental understanding, I'm like, I have no idea what that means, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of my missions. It's in business as well. I always love saying, if I'm going to walk into your office one day and be like, and tell you, like, you need to be a better leader, and then I walk out, you're left there thinking, like, what does Matt mean by that?
Right.
And here's the thing: we all want to be great leaders. I want to be a great leader, but like, what does that mean? What are we driving towards? And it's the same thing with the mindset thing. It's like, we have to define it. So that's why I did this Ignite Your Mindset kind of 5-step process. Like, this is what we're driving towards, right? So the first step is confidence, right? How do we have that 100% self-belief when we look in that mirror? The second step is focus. So what am I focused on? Why am I focused on it? What value am I deriving from the minutes and seconds that I have today, right? Part of what I do in business is like, so we connected, you're like, oh, Matt, can you be on my podcast? And my immediate thought was like, well, this will be fun. But my next thought was like, well, okay, what value exchange is happening with this, right? So can I have the impact that Quentin wants, and then vice versa, right? Is my story going to impact his listeners? Right? And sometimes it's a fit, sometimes it's not. This one is a fit, right? But it's going through that, like, is my time well spent on this area, right? So that's that focus piece, right? We have so much time, and with distractions and all that stuff.
For sure.
So the third step is what I call control. And what I mean by that is emotional control. We all have the ups, downs, happiness, sadness, anger, frustration, everything, like, left and right of that, right? But it's the best of the best to understand is how you channel those emotions and how you avoid these massive peaks and these really low valleys, and stay more level-headed as you approach the day. So getting people focused on that emotional control. And the fourth step is energy. So I take a very holistic approach in my business. This is working with athletes, this is working with business leaders. But we talk about what happens at work and at home, right? We talk about this energy level of, like, how do I wake up with the most energy possible and carry it through at a high level throughout the day? So I also talk about nutrition. I integrate some of my wife's stuff into what we talk about, like what you eat impacts your performance and impacts your emotional control, your confidence, like all that. Everything's linked, right? So you have to look holistically at this stuff. But we also talk like recovery. We talk sleep. I integrate some of that stuff in it as well.
Beautiful.
Because that impacts your mindset, your mental toughness, right?
Yeah.
And then the fifth step is ultimately, how do we take the tools that we learn in each of those different areas and create high performance habits? That's step number 5. How do we create these habits? I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of, like, that 3 to 5% of our brain is like the conscious mind, and then 95 to 98% is like the conscious mind, subconscious mind. And subconscious mind is just running our habits, right? It's running our automatic behavior. And so by forming these habits differently, we're actually changing our brain, our neural pathways, neurochemistry, all that sort of stuff. and changing our subconscious mind.
Right,
where the
right.
things we want to have happen in our story to help us get to that story ultimately become part of just our automatic behavior. So those are the
Cool.
5 steps I go teach and equip people with the tools around that.
Love it,
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah.
Now, on one of my, I had a couple podcasts yesterday, and one of the guests that I had yesterday is a chiropractor, and he was talking about creating this environment within his office when his clients walk in, that just kind of promotes this setting of just them of comfort, right?
Yes.
So, and one of the big things that he does to create this space of comfort for his clients is the way that he talks to them, the words that come out of his mouth. So we had a great discussion, an in-depth discussion about words and communicating, in a specific certain way to people. How important, Matt, whether you're working with athletes, whether you're working with high-level business people, whether you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to your kids, just interacting in the community every day, just interactions with people, how important is it for you to speak in a specific way and be conscious of the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Oh, it's incredibly important, and
Yes.
it's like the foundation for everything. And the way I describe it is, there's two conversations. So there's the internal dialogue happening, and there's the external dialogue. And we often focus so much, I think, as a society on like the external, right? So how am I speaking to you? How am I speaking to my wife and my kids, right? But we sometimes forget about the inner dialogue of I'm being so rude to myself, I'm being so hard on myself, and yeah, it's almost easier to like correct how you talk to other people.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, of course it is.
Because it's a perception of like I walk in, I want people to perceive me a certain way, all that sort of stuff, right? But internally, we're just ripping each other apart, ripping ourselves apart.
Right.
So one of the things I talk about all the time is like, if you look at the way, like I integrate neuroscience into like what I talk about,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And so we have these neural pathways that we set in our brains, right? And the thing I try to get across to people is like, it's not just like that you're being rude to yourself or tough on yourself or rude to others, all that sort of stuff, right? Or negative or positive, all that stuff. It's like you are internally creating neural pathways in your own brain. So you're creating physical structures in your brain based on the way you talk to yourself. You're also, based on the words you speak, you are creating physical structures, like neural pathways, in people's brains that you're sitting with.
Wow.
So if I sit and I say something to you that's very negative, then if you're not careful as that receiver of that information, you could create something, a neural pathway in your brain, and all of a sudden start believing that. Right? So we have this amazing power that goes beyond like, oh, you just hurt someone's feelings. No, you just changed their brain.
Wow.
And just be careful when what you want to do, right? So a lot of this stuff is like, in the past has been this very woo-woo, right? So meditation and positive thinking and all this blah, blah. It's like, no. As we learn about the brain and the body too, we're actually changing things within people and within ourselves.
Right.
So for me, it's like when I talk to myself, I'm still hard on myself. I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's sports things.
I think a lot of it has to do
right?
with that sports upbringing. It's kind of natural
Yeah.
in that realm.
But you have to be. I have to be careful with myself,
For
like
sure,
because I can
for
go down
sure.
a path of like, am I really worthy of this? Right? Am I good enough to make this happen? Right? There's somebody in a better position. That's some of the stuff I used and still do a little bit. I'm much better at it. But I in the past used to compare myself to other people all the time, and that would kill my momentum. Because all of a sudden I'd be like, I'm not good enough to do that, right? As I compare to other people. Like they might be better than me. And it's like, that's not the case at all. I've got great skill sets that they don't have, right?
Absolutely.
And I can compete. So shifting that and me understanding that I can break those pathways I have in my brain and set up ones that I want. And they're going to move me forward in my life.
Right,
Same thing
right.
with my kids and what I use. And, I screw up with my kids. I mean, I screw up probably more than I want to. But what I try to do is apologize to them, acknowledge it, and say, "Listen, I'm trying to work on this," but apologize first and be like, "How can I help you?" And kind of make that right type thing.
Yeah.
So it's huge. We're oh my gosh, like we're physically changing people's minds.
I know.
And brains.
Dude,
like,
I could just sit here with you, just like I did yesterday with my guests, and because I'm learning so much, Matt, about the power of, again, that self-talk, and that self-talk then manifesting in our lives, and then other people's lives. There's this pastor, his name's Judah Smith, and I was listening to a podcast that he was on, sharing kind of his story and stuff, and he said, words create the culture we live in. And when he said that, I was like, whoa. And not only do words create the culture like we individually live in, but if we're a dad, if we're a business leader, or wherever we're working, like, words not only create the culture that we live in individually, personally, but words create the culture that others around us live in. And I've been meditating on that. I shared that with some of my students at school, wrote up on the whiteboard, and it's just, what a powerful statement, because it's so true. Like, what I'm telling myself is manifested, and then what I am speaking out into the world and putting out into the world verbally, it's creating so much, So it's just like, it's fascinating stuff, because I personally, again, growing up sports, you see the posters in the weight room say never give up, and you've got some guy hanging on a cliff or whatever, and all this stuff. You hear all this stuff, but until you actually understand what it means, and then, like you said earlier, the importance of application, like when you're listening to a podcast, you take that information and then you begin to apply it. Then that's when you actually learn what it is, and you really learn it through adversity and hardship and getting uncomfortable. So just love that stuff about words. So appreciate you sharing that insight. Now,
absolutely,
you touched a little bit on nutrition, and you talked about your wife. I think she plays a huge role in Pro Athlete Advantage. I saw her picture as a nutritionist on your website. So let's just touch a little bit more on the importance of nutrition and recovery. Sleep. We put sleep in recovery. We can do chiropractic work, massage, but the importance of nutrition, recovery, specifically sleep, in the mindset and being a high level, high performing individual.
Yeah, it's like we have on the website. So we've launched a whole nutrition section on the website, because we believe in the importance of it. Because the mind feeds the body and the body feeds the mind. So if you go to the website, you'll see those exact words. And it's one of those things, like, how do I expect to be the best dad possible, right, or best business person, fill in the blank, possible, if I'm fueling my body with absolute junk. Right. And so we're dealt with these choices every day of, how do I feed my body, right? How do we look at food and all this stuff? And again, everything comes from like beliefs that we've grown up with, right? But ultimately, we have a choice of like what we put in our body. And so, when I look at like what I eat for breakfast, what I eat for lunch, my wife takes great care. I give her all the credit, right? She takes very good care of her family.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'd probably be a mess without her, right? I'd be like 500 pounds. And not would be that bad, but I'd be overweight, right?
Yeah.
But we all have these choices ultimately, and I still do. Like, she could put great food on the table, and we're blessed she can cook, and she likes to cook. She actually loves it. But I have a choice every day of like, what do I eat for lunch, and how do I want to fuel myself? And I just want to approach each day like, if I eat this and it has a positive energetic reaction on my body, that means it's fueling my mind the same way, and I can go have a bigger impact in this world, right?
Absolutely.
And on people, with my clients. So that's kind of that approach we have every day. I eat donuts, I eat cookies, we have ice cream, but we're very careful in like how much of that we have throughout the day. So it's just that, when we talk about words and thoughts, right? Thoughts create these neuropeptides, right? Which is amino acid. It's a protein which our cells use as fuel, right? So, and there's different peptides based on positive or negative, right? So that's okay. So you're feeding your body that from your mind, from your thoughts, and they've studied this, and like the cells have different reactions when it's positive. Like the cells react better, right? And they perform the functions that they should in a more efficient manner. And the same thing is true of like the food and water we put in our body. Do you want your cells to react slow when you put that like heavy sugar and junk in it and processed foods that the body doesn't even know what to do with? Or you can choose to put something in it that's going to be like, get your cells being like, oh, boom, 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 here we go, right? It was interesting, my nutrition's so neglected. I think we go back to, it's almost like the mental side of like, we know nutrition's important, but we don't know how to do it. So our big focus, and this is what I talk about with athletes and business leaders, and my wife does, is let's create a system where you already know what to eat. You already know what to eat. But we make it so darn difficult. So it's like, create a system that is simple, that is repeatable, where you don't have to waste the mental energy thinking about it, right? And the perfect example is like, I eat Chipotle every day for lunch. Every day. Right? Only exception is if I happen to be at home or at a client meeting, right? But I eat every day. The reason I do that is because, first of all, I don't have time to think about where I need to eat for lunch, right?
Right.
What happens every time is you pull through the drive-thru of something not so healthy. So I instead have decided, okay, that's the one place I'm going to eat. I can get pretty healthy stuff there.
Yep.
I know I order the same thing every time. And my biggest worry, Quentin, is like getting on my phone and being like, where's the closest Chipotle here, right?
Right.
That changes if I'm traveling overseas, but that's my biggest concern.
Yeah.
So I don't have to waste the energy where I could be putting it somewhere else. So that's where we focus as a team at Pro Athlete Advantage with the nutrition side is like, let's create a system. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, everything between. When you travel, like people always fall off the track, or when I travel, well, you build a system and you won't fall off track,
Absolutely, right?
So that's to really guide people because it plays a huge role. Pro athletes as well. It's like we tend to sacrifice and forget about nutrition sometimes, even though we want to perform at a high level. It's like no, mind-body connection, mind-body connection. The gut and brain it's amazing.
100%. Yep, agree that. Now, just quickly touching on sleep, because that's something that is becoming. There's a lot more focus on sleep, which I love it because sleep is very, very important. That's where the body repairs itself. Thoughts are collected and processed, with the brain.
Yes.
So just the importance, again on performance for people that are trying to achieve greatness, become the best version of themselves. How important and vital is sleep to that entire process?
It's huge. I had Dr. Michael Brewis on my podcast a while ago now, but you can find it. It's the Mental Toughness Podcast, and go check it out. And he's Dr. Oz's sleep doctor.
Oh, wow.
Was it sleep? Yeah, he's like the sleep expert. Has on all the time. Which cracks me up. I want to be like Dr. Oz's mental toughness expert.
There you go,
like
man.
Right?
Hey, you never know. You never know.
But it was a fascinating conversation because, again, people know like sleep is good, and that's where all the cells repair. Like just like you said, right? That's where it happens. And we think, if I sleep less and work more, I'm going to be more efficient. And it's like the complete opposite is true. The science proves it, right? But yet we're stubborn as humans, where we think like, well, I'll sleep less and it'll be fine, right? And I'll just push through and persevere again, right?
Right. Yep.
Again, there's a point to it. But if you look at the science and believe in that, and understand the importance of it, then it's like, okay, how do you create this system then where now I'm going to integrate that into my routine, and it's going to become part of it, and we have a choice, right? We had some neighbors of ours had this party that they invited us to, and it was actually a really busy night for us, but we had my daughter's birthday, so that was the main focus, and then my son had a team hockey party so we could get to know the team this year. So we went to that, and we finished that party at 9 after doing all my daughter's birthday things. And then my wife and I had a choice, and we drove by the party because it's in our neighborhood, and there's cars everywhere, so it's still going on. And I had a choice of like, okay, what do I do? Because I was tired, and I always kind of rank things, and like sleep's pretty high on my ranking. And I know the importance of sleep, so I made a choice, and both my wife and I need our sleep, and we're like, well, instead of going to that party, which we found out later people were there till like 2 a.m.
Oh wow, yeah.
I'm like, that would have wrecked me for like a week.
Yep.
And so we made this choice of like, no, we're going to skip the party and go to that. Right, and get to the sleep. And Dr. Brewis talked a lot about that. We talked about a variety of different things. One thing he talked about was the gut and brain and sleep connection.
It's unbelievable.
So based on what you eat, the hormones in your stomach, like they basically prepare you to sleep.
For sure.
So back to the food thing. But we even talked about travel. Like, if I have to go to the East Coast, Dr. Brewis, like, what do I do? Right, it's a 2-hour time difference from here in Denver, and what do I do? And he goes. About 2 to 3 days before, start eating on their schedule. And I'm like,
interesting.
What? He said that. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I thought you'd be like, go to bed earlier.
Right, yeah.
He's like, no. Like the gut, like what you eat, triggers like the body to be like, oh, okay, it's time to prepare to go to sleep, right? So if you're used to eating dinner at 6 at night, well, you better start eating on the New York schedule if you're going to go to the East Coast, right? Fascinating stuff.
For sure.
And then he shared. The folks will have to listen to that podcast because he shared a lot of stuff about just like how to get your ideal amount of sleep. But again, it comes down to a choice. Like the science proves that like sleep's important. So create a system and make choices of like, I'm not going to stay out that late.
For
or
sure,
I'm not
for
going to
sure.
drink that much. Because I know that I have to get to that REM sleep to repair my
Absolutely.
body and repair my head. Yeah.
Cool. So we're getting close to going an hour here. Your son's got a hockey
Almost
game
hockey
coming
time.
up. So I wanna we're gonna head towards the end
Cool.
here. You've mentioned your wife, you've mentioned your kids and things like that. Anybody that comes on my podcast that is married or has a significant other, has kids, I always want to give them the opportunity just to speak on the importance of their significant other, of their kids, because for most people in life, if their family isn't everything, it's usually second to faith. Yeah. So I just want to give you the platform. I want to give you the opportunity just to speak about the importance of your wife and your life, and you becoming and pursuing the best version of yourself, Matt, and the importance of your kids and fatherhood and how that's really changed your life.
Yeah, so I'll talk about my wife specifically, because she's an incredible woman. And the thing I'll say right away, which I think a lot of people will be uncomfortable saying, is like, she and I go to therapy. And people sometimes when I say that, they're like, oh, I guess something wrong. And I'm like, no, nothing's wrong. It's just that marriage is difficult. Relationships are difficult. Having kids is difficult. And a lot of times I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Right.
Or we're faced with a new thing that we've never had to go through before as a couple. And so my wife and I, we've just, over the years, we've gone through therapy, and it's, again, nothing bad, but like, how do we best deal with each other? How do we best communicate? How do we best work through the specific issues that pop up? And for those of listeners out there right now who think of therapy as something bad, therapy is something great, right? Call it a life coach, call it therapy, but find someone who can help your marriage just to work through the little things before they become big things. And so for my wife and I, that's been a huge piece of like what we've dealt with, stuff from our past, stuff like in our relationship, dealing with kids, like us getting on the same page. It's just that continuous development. Like, I think we focus so much on like, okay, I'm going to work on myself and I'm going to get better. I'm going to like continuously improve. But it's like, are you doing the same thing with your marriage? Are you doing the same thing with your kids? I mean, my whole family, we've gone to therapy as a family, which my kids hated, by the way.
Right.
13, 11, and 7. And they're just like, what in the world are we doing? But it wasn't a bad thing. It was like, we want to get better as a family, so why don't we go to see this person and see if we can glean something from, it happens to be a woman, from her to help us, right? Because relationships are difficult.
Absolutely.
So I'm just a big believer in like, go to therapy. It's like, and if you think it's bad, call me. I'll tell you.
Right,
it's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
cool. Yeah.
Like, oh, where'd you go? Maybe I can learn something from that person too, right?
For sure.
It's
for
huge,
sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Last question that I have for you, Matt. What do you want your legacy to be?
At my funeral one day, I want people to say that I positively impacted their life. That's all I want.
Perfect.
That's simple.
I love it, man. That's you know what, you've said the word simple probably 10 times, and seriously, that simplicity is powerful. It's power.
It's everything, man. It's the finance term. I always talk about the compounding effect, right? It's the small finance is small bits of interest, like reinvested in the stock market. Hopefully, you retire a millionaire, right? Because it adds up
for sure.
Exponentially. It's the same thing in life. The same thing in habits and our mindset and everything that we do. If you can do one small thing consistently, you look back a month, 6 months, a year from now, 10 years from now, oh my gosh, where you'll be will blow you away.
Right. And so with that, we're gonna end things, Matt. I just personally want to thank you for taking time out of your Sunday, taking time out of time with your son and things like that to hang out with me, to share your story. It's greatly appreciated. Now, just quickly, if somebody wants to reach out to you, wants to follow along kind of your story, your life, things like that, where can people reach out to you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, best is website, so proathleteadvantage.com. If anything comes up, I mean, a lot of companies, we do speeches, workshop programs, executive like one-on-one coaching, business owner one-on-one coaching, executive retreats in the mountains of Vail. So we help in a variety of different ways. So if anything for you or your team comes up from a business perspective, let us know. And so you can send an email to info@proathleteadvantage.com. I'll pick it up, or one of my teammates will pick it up, and we'll see how we can best kind of help you along the way. And then obviously go check out the Mental Toughness podcast
Yes.
too. It's, you know, similar to you, Quentin, and I just love telling people stories and help people get out of their own way here.
Love it, man. Love it. So, Matt, thank you very much again for your time today. Listeners, per the usual, I just want to thank you for your listening ears. Thank you for tuning into the podcast, hanging out with Matt and myself today. I know that you gained a lot of value from this episode, and there's a lot of takeaways. So thank you. If you want to follow along with what I've got going on, if you want to find out more about my guests and the people that I'm bringing on to the podcast, you can follow along, find out more about my guests at 127 Fitness. That's on Instagram. The personal Instagram account is at QVars. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. If you would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star rating and review, and also subscribe to the podcast if you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance you think would be a great guest or guest, please send me an email or give this email out. The email is 127fit@gmail.com. And as you're finding value in specific episodes or an episode of the 127 Fit podcast, if you would do me another huge favor and share that episode or episodes on your Facebook and Instagram stories, that would be greatly appreciated. And then use the hashtag be someone to follow. And then per the usual, again, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.